I didn't hear the footsteps behind me until it was too late. The conference room door slammed shut, the lights flicked off, and a flashlight, small, bright, blinding, snapped on right in my face. "Where's the flash drive, Mark?" The voice was deep, familiar, and shaking with anger. My throat closed. I could barely breathe. Someone else stepped forward, bigger, heavier, and locked the door from inside. I felt the floor tilt under me as the HR director, Mr. Callahan, leaned so close I could smell the mint on his breath. "You were told to stay quiet. You were warned. This is your last chance." Then he whispered the words that froze my blood. "Your little boy talks too much. Maybe he needs a lesson." A chair scraped. A hand reached for me. And then, a tiny voice screamed from the hallway. "Daddy, run." I saw what they hid. My heart slammed against my ribs. How did my 6-year-old get here? What did he see? And how long had they been planning this? Before I continue, if you're still here, make sure you like, follow, and stick around for more stories like this. Trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next. My name is Mark Turner. I'm 32, a husband, and a father to one very smart boy named Ethan. Too smart sometimes, if you ask me. My wife, Claire, works as a nurse. We're a simple family. We don't have much, but we have each other. We laugh a lot. We argue sometimes. We dream big, even when life feels small. I took the auditing job at NetCore Systems because we needed the extra money. Rent was climbing, Ethan was growing, and my old job barely covered groceries. NetCore was supposed to be my big break: stable income, health insurance, a clear path upward. I felt proud walking into that glass building every morning. But pride is dangerous. It blinds you. And for me, it almost killed everything I loved. The story truly began 3 months into the job. It was a slow Tuesday morning. Calm, quiet, the kind of day where the office AC hums louder than the people. I sat at my cubicle reviewing routine expense reports, boring, predictable numbers. The kind that let your brain wander. Then a glitch hit my screen. Just a tiny flicker. A folder appeared for half a second, then vanished. I frowned. Probably nothing, I thought. But curiosity pushed me to dig. That's what auditors do. We chase loose threads. I retraced the system logs. There it was again, an unmarked directory buried deep in NetCore's internal server. No labels. No owner. Heavily encrypted. Almost invisible. My first mistake was clicking on it. My second was trying to open it. It asked for a key I didn't have. But I'm good with numbers, patterns, codes, logic. It's my thing. And what looked impossible at first slowly began to feel like a puzzle begging to be solved. I shouldn't have solved it. I know that now. After almost an hour, the folder cracked open. My stomach dropped. 12 years. 12 years of illegal contracts. Offshore shell companies. Laundered money funneled through fake payrolls. Names I recognized, executives, legal staff, people I had eaten lunch with. Signatures. Transactions. Hidden accounts. Hundreds of documents. All of them criminal. All of them damning. All under a company that publicly claimed to be honest, transparent, employee first. My hands trembled. I grabbed my flash drive and copied everything, fast, terrified, sweating. I didn't know what I planned to do with it. I just knew I couldn't leave it there. Then something odd happened. A second cursor, yes, another mouse cursor, moved across my screen for a brief second. Someone was watching. Someone else was in the system with me. I yanked the drive out and slammed my laptop shut. My legs felt weak as I walked into the auditing team's office. "Guys, I found something. Something serious. You need to see this." They didn't even look up. The team lead, Megan, typed calmly, never breaking rhythm. "Mark, drop it. Company policy. Don't ask. Don't dig. But this is criminal activity," I whispered. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were empty, cold, like someone who had already buried every ounce of conscience. "We warned you during onboarding," she said. "Stay in your lane." The others didn't say a word. Not even a cough. Just silence. That silence told me everything. They knew. They all knew. And now, I knew too much. I walked out fast, heart pounding, sweat cold on my neck. Someone else had noticed my search. Someone powerful. Someone who didn't want the truth out. And they weren't going to let me walk away from it. The hallway lights flickered overhead as I headed for the exit. Every step echoed. Every eye that passed me felt like it lingered too long. By the time I reached the lobby, I was sure of one thing. I was no longer an employee. I was a threat, and threats don't survive long at NetCore. Then a shadow fell behind me, tall, wide, blocking the light. "Mark," a voice said softly. I turned around. It was the HR director, smiling without warmth. "I hear you've been digging." My throat tightened. And just like that, the calm moment ended, and the real nightmare began. The HR director's smile haunted me for days. Every time I blinked, I saw it, calm, patient, the way a hunter watches prey it knows can't outrun it. I barely slept that week. I barely ate. My wife, Claire, kept asking if everything was okay at work, but I couldn't tell her. Not yet. Not when I didn't understand how deep this thing went. Ethan, my 6-year-old, kept drawing me pictures, stick-figure dads with capes. "Daddy, superheroes don't get scared," he said one night. But I was terrified. I checked the windows twice a night. I kept the flash drive hidden inside a sealed compartment in my toolbox. Every time a car slowed down near our house, my heart raced. I thought the worst was over after that day in the office. I was wrong. Everything felt strangely calm that week. The kind of calm that doesn't soothe you, but warns you. Even the emails from work were normal. Routine. Safe. But on Thursday morning, at 11:14 a.m., a new message arrived. Subject line: "You are warmly invited." I frowned. HR didn't do warmly. HR barely did hello. I opened it. The message had gold borders, confetti graphics, and a large, elegant script across the center. "Mark, you are warmly invited to my private birthday celebration this Saturday evening. Your presence would mean a lot. Callahan, HR Director." Below, it included a location, a mansion address I'd never heard of, and a line in bold. "Attendance is encouraged." Encouraged. Not required. Not optional either. I stared at that email for a long time. Claire read over my shoulder. "Wow, fancy," she said. "Do you think you should go?" "I don't know." I whispered. But deep down I did know. I shouldn't. Everything in me shouted don't go. Yet something else whispered louder. If I ignored him, he'd come to me. Worse, he might come here where my wife and son slept. So Saturday evening, against every instinct I had, I put on a clean shirt, kissed Ethan on the forehead, and told Claire I wouldn't be long. The mansion was bigger than I imagined. 3 stories, marble steps, glowing lanterns lining the walkway. Balloons floated at the gate. Soft jazz drifted through hidden speakers. It looked like a real birthday party. Warm. Welcoming. Too welcoming. A guard in a suit waved me through without checking any list. "Mr. Turner, they're expecting you." Expecting me. Not waiting for guests. Not welcome. Expecting me. The moment I stepped inside, the music cut off. All the lights dimmed. The air tightened. My heartbeat roared in my ears. There were no guests. No laughter. No cake. No friends. Only men, tall, built, dressed in black suits, lining the walls like statues. Armed statues. The doors behind me slammed shut and locked with a heavy metal click. I froze. Footsteps echoed from the grand staircase. Callahan descended slowly, hands behind his back, smiling the same calm, deadly smile he wore in the conference room. He moved like a man who owned not just the house, but everyone inside it. "Mark," he said warmly, "I'm so glad you could make it." I swallowed hard. Where's the party?" His smile widened. "Oh, it's right here." The men in suits stepped closer, forming a tight circle around me. Their faces were blank. Not angry. Not excited. Just empty. The kind of empty you see in people who've done terrible things too many times to care anymore. Callahan walked closer until he stood just a foot away. "Let's not pretend," he said softly. "You already know why you're here." He extended his hand. "Give me the flash drive." My mouth went dry. My palms turned cold. I forced myself to stay calm. "I don't have it," I said. "It sits at home." The smile fell from his face like a mask slipping off. Silence. Stillness. Then a slow exhale. He nodded once. "Follow him," he said to his men. "If he's lying, kill his mother first." My knees almost buckled. "No," I gasped. "Leave her out of this." "It's your choice," he said, returning to that empty smile. "You bring me the drive, or we start with your mother." 2 men grabbed my arms. One opened the door. The outside air felt colder, sharper. I wasn't being escorted. I was being delivered. They pushed me toward their black SUV. As they closed in around me, guns visible under their jackets, I realized something with bone-deep certainty. I was no longer walking into danger. Danger was walking with me. And if I didn't think fast, if I didn't outsmart them, my family would be buried before sunrise. The SUV door opened. A hand shoved my back. Then, a sudden flash of headlights cut across the driveway, tires screeching, someone else arriving fast. The men turned sharply, hands moving toward their weapons. And just like that, the headlights that had flashed across the driveway turned out to be nothing, just a neighbor pulling up to drop off a package at the wrong house. But that moment of distraction was enough for the men to shove me into the SUV and slam the door shut behind me. The drive to my home felt longer than it should have, long, dark, silent. The men didn't talk. They didn't look at me. They sat like carved stone, guns visible beneath their jackets, breathing slow and steady, as if violence was a normal part of their evening. My thoughts ran wild. My pulse hammered. Every streetlight that passed over the car felt like a countdown. When we reached my house, the SUV rolled to a smooth stop. One man turned to me with dead eyes. Do anything stupid, and someone dies before you even think twice. I nodded quickly. My throat was too tight to speak. The front yard looked peaceful, our little porch light glowing soft yellow, Ethan's scooter lying sideways on the grass, Claire's potted flowers by the door. The kind of scene that should calm a man. But tonight it felt like a goodbye. They marched me inside. Claire was at the dining table, helping Ethan color a picture of a rocket ship. She looked up with a warm smile, then froze when she saw the man behind me. Mark? Her voice cracked. Ethan stood up, confused. Daddy, who are? One of the men stepped forward and put a finger to his own lips. Ethan went silent. Claire grabbed his arm protectively, her breath shaking. Where is the drive? The leader demanded. I looked at Claire, trying to assure her with my eyes. Then I walked to the garage door. The men followed close behind. Inside the garage, the air smelled like cold tools and old paint. My hand shook as I grabbed the toolbox, unscrewed the false bottom, and pulled out the flash drive wrapped in tape. The leader snatched it from my hand instantly. Is this everything? Yes, I whispered. He stared at me hard, searching my face for lies. Then he stepped forward. His breath brushed my cheek. One mistake, he whispered, and your Christmas becomes your funeral. The words slid into my spine like a blade. He signaled the others. They fanned through the house, opening drawers, scanning rooms, looking for backups, anything that could get them killed if they missed it. They questioned Claire. They questioned me. They even asked Ethan what he'd seen on my computer lately. I wanted to punch them. I wanted to scream. But I stayed still. Because they had guns. Because they knew where my mother lived. Because they didn't bluff. After 10 brutal minutes, they regrouped. The leader nodded. Let's move. They filed out, never rushing, never panicking, just moving like men who'd done this 100 times. The last man paused at the door and looked back at me. Remember what he said? Christmas. Then the door clicked shut, and silence swallowed the house. Claire collapsed into my arms, crying. Ethan clung to my leg, trembling. What is happening, Mark? Claire whispered. Who are those people? I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to break open in her arms. But instead I lied. It's just work stuff. I'll fix it. Because if she knew the truth, she'd never sleep again. The next week, I returned to Net Core Systems. Walking into that building felt like stepping into a lion's den with a sign that said smile like you belong here. I forced myself to breathe evenly, nod casually, pretend nothing had happened. But the moment I entered the lobby, I felt eyes on me. HR Callahan stood near the elevator, sipping coffee with a relaxed posture, watching me with the quiet hunger of a predator who had already swallowed its prey but liked to watch it twitch. I nodded stiffly. Morning, Mark, he replied smoothly. Good to see you back. Hope you're feeling cooperative. Every employee who passed us lowered their eyes, like they knew not to make contact. In the elevator, Callahan stood beside me in silence. When the doors opened, he leaned in. You don't have the drive anymore. That's good. He stepped out. But let's call this Phase 1. Phase 1. My stomach dropped. I returned to my cubicle, trying to act normal. Everything looked the same. My chair, my reports, my screensaver of Ethan's silly grin. But the air felt wrong, heavy, suffocating. Around lunchtime, I received a message from the Internal Investigation Department. Please report to Conference Room C for a required compliance review. I felt cold all over. Walking into the conference room, I expected a few people, maybe paperwork. Instead, there were 7 investigators, all staring at me. A pile of documents sat neatly arranged on the table, and on the top page was my name, typed in bold. Mr. Turner, the lead investigator said, "We've received evidence of significant financial misconduct tied to your employee ID." My vision blurred. What? That's impossible. He slid a folder toward me. Inside were documents, hundreds, all forged, but perfect. My signature, my ID number, money transfers to offshore accounts, fake payroll entries, email logs I never wrote, approval forms with my digital stamp, files supposedly accessed from my laptop at times I wasn't even awake. My entire digital fingerprint had been hijacked. And behind those documents, screenshots, trace transactions, audit logs, everything pointed to me. It was a complete frame job. We've also received an anonymous whistleblower tip, the investigator added, accusing you of hiding a flash drive containing additional evidence. My heart nearly burst out of my chest. Anonymous whistleblower. Callahan. Of course. The trap I'd feared was no longer forming. It had already closed. Mr. Turner, the investigator said coldly, folding his hands. At this time, you are considered the primary suspect in a multi-year financial crime operation. My ears rang. And until further notice, he continued, you are suspended from duty and forbidden from accessing company systems. You will surrender your badge immediately. I sat frozen, unable to breathe, unable to speak. This wasn't just a frame job. This was a burial. A door behind me opened. Callahan stepped in casually, holding a mug as if he'd just arrived from a pleasant stroll. He smiled. Rough morning, Mark? The investigators nodded respectfully to him, like he was the hero who had brought them their biggest case. And at that moment, staring at his calm, victorious face, I realized something soul-crushing. He hadn't just taken the flash drive. He hadn't just threatened my family. He hadn't just erased his crimes. He had stolen my life and replaced it with a crime he built in my name. And now, the company, the investigators, the system, everyone believed him. Callahan leaned close to my ear and whispered, "It's checkmate." And then, with a soft clap, he added, "Now let's see how long you survive the fall." The sirens came before sunrise. Loud, violent, final. Their red and blue lights splashed across our bedroom walls like a nightmare, trying to claw its way inside. I jolted awake to fists pounding on the door, hard enough to rattle the frame. "Mark Turner, open up. Police." Claire shot upright, eyes wide with terror. "Mark, what's happening?" I didn't have time to answer. The door burst open before I reached it. 6 officers charged in, guns drawn, shouting commands. Ethan screamed from the hallway, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. Claire threw her arms around him, terrified. "Hands behind your head. On the ground. Do it now." I froze, lifting my hands slowly. "Please, my family, just don't point the guns at." A knee slammed into my back, forcing me onto the carpet. Cold cuffs snapped around my wrists. Another officer recited rights I could barely hear over my pounding heart. "You are under arrest for financial fraud, money laundering, and orchestrating a multi-year criminal scheme." I didn't do anything. I choked. "Please, listen. Those documents were faked." "Tell it to the court," one officer muttered. They dragged me through my living room, past the family photos, the spilled cereal bowl on the counter, the crayon drawing taped to the fridge that said my daddy is a hero. As they pushed me out the door, Ethan's scream echoed behind me. "Daddy!" Claire tried to pull toward me, but an officer held her back. "Ma'am, stay inside." I'll never forget the look on my son's face, his small hands reaching, shaking, desperate, and the door slammed shut behind me. Jail didn't smell like fear at first. It smelled like sweat, old iron, and hopelessness that had been sitting in the walls for decades. The first week was a blur, Interrogations, accusations, paperwork shoved in my face, guards barking orders. No one believed me. Every room I entered already had its mind made up. They threw me in a cell with peeling paint and a steel toilet that didn't flush right. The mattress was thin, the blanket smelled like mold, and every night the echoes of other inmates arguing or crying bounced off the concrete. Time stopped having meaning. A week felt like a month. A month felt like a year. The system moved slowly, but their hatred for me moved fast. The guards treated me like dirt. Some of them smirked when they walked past my cell. "You that NetCore guy?" One asked on the third week. "The one who stole all that money?" Why I didn't answer, he chuckled. Hope it was worth it. The truth didn't matter. Why I needed to prove didn't matter. HR had planted the perfect story, one everyone was eager to believe. My court hearings became the only days that felt real. They let my wife attend, and every time she brought Ethan. He wasn't allowed to sit with me, but he always ran to the bars outside the holding section where I was kept. "Daddy," he'd whisper through the iron openings, slipping his tiny fingers inside. "I miss you." I held onto those fingers every time, held them like they were the last thing keeping me alive. His eyes were always wide, always trembling, too young to understand, old enough to be afraid. "I'll come home," I told him every time. "I promise, buddy. Daddy will come home." But each hearing made that promise feel thinner, weaker, closer to a lie. After the second hearing, everything became horrifyingly clear. The moment I stepped into the courtroom, the prosecution slammed down a new stack of documents, fresh evidence of crimes I supposedly committed. Fake bank draws, fake offshore transfers, fake signatures, fake emails, all pointing to me. Every hearing was the same. New evidence, new witnesses, new lies, and every single piece traced back to HR. Callahan had done more than frame me. He had built an entire world where I was the villain. And the judge? He didn't even hide his bias. Cold eyes, short sentences, barely concealed irritation whenever my attorney tried to object. By the second hearing, the judge leaned back, sighed, and said, "This case is straightforward. The evidence is overwhelming." My attorney tried to fight. "Your Honor, the authenticity of the documents." The judge cut him off. "We will proceed." I knew then. The walls were rigged. The whispers were rigged. The system was rigged. Everything was a stage built by HR, and I was the man they wanted buried underneath it. When the judge announced he would give his verdict at the next hearing, Claire covered her mouth, shaking. My attorney slumped in his seat, eyes dark with defeat. And Ethan, he sat in the back row, his feet not even touching the floor. His little hands clutched the teddy bear he always brought. He didn't cry. Not this time. He just stared at me with trembling, broken eyes, like he finally understood I might never come home. Something inside me snapped. Not anger, not fear, something deeper, something that refused to die inside a lie someone else wrote for me. I stared at the judge's raised gavel, at the prosecution's smug faces, at the bailiffs watching me like an animal. Then my gaze found Ethan again. His eyes widened, like he sensed something changing inside me, like he knew I was about to make a choice that would change everything. The judge lifted his gavel. Based on the evidence presented, the courtroom held its breath. My son gripped his teddy bear tighter, and just as the gavel began to fall, the doors at the back of the courtroom burst open with a deafening crash. Gasps exploded. The bailiff spun around. The judge froze mid-sentence, and standing in the doorway, small, shaking, eyes burning, was my 6-year-old, and what he was holding in his tiny hands made every person in that courtroom go silent. The courtroom went dead silent. Every head turned toward the back doors, and there she was, my little girl, standing on a wooden bench, trembling but determined, her tiny hand raised high above her head. And in that hand was a small pink flash drive decorated with glitter stickers. The judge froze mid-swing. The bailiffs exchanged confused looks. The entire room seemed to lean in at once. My daughter's voice shook, but it carried through the courtroom like a bell. Mommy said Daddy didn't lie. So I saved what he was saving. Gasps rippled like a wave. Claire rushed forward, tears streaming down her cheeks, trying to steady her. But my daughter didn't back down. She clutched the pink flash drive to her chest like it was a shield. Then she walked, slowly, bravely, toward the judge's bench. The judge lowered his gavel, stunned. "Little girl, what is that?" She sniffed, wiped her face with her sleeve, and held the drive out. "Daddy had a black one," she said. "But it looked scary. So, when he was tired that night, and he put it in his toolbox, I copied it. I just wanted to help him." My breath left my body. I felt my knees nearly buckle. My daughter, my sweet, gentle 6-year-old, had copied the evidence. She had no idea what she was doing. She only knew her father was scared, and she didn't want me to be alone. A murmur broke through the courtroom gallery. "Is that possible? She made a backup? Oh my God." The judge frowned at the investigators. "You, verify it. Now." A tech officer sprang forward, taking the little flash drive with gloved hands. He plugged it into the courtroom projector system. The screens flickered. A progress bar appeared. Loading data. 1%, 5%, 12%. The silence was so thick it felt like fog. Then, click. The first document appeared. A contract. A forged signature. A payroll scheme. Dates. Names. Offshore accounts. And then another. And another. 12 years of corruption poured onto the courtroom screen like a dam breaking open. Every file matched the numbers HR had framed me with. Line for line, dollar for dollar. But these were the originals. Watermarked. Time-stamped. Tracked. The real evidence. The truth. The room erupted. "Holy, this matches everything he claimed. These are the authentic records. The metadata, it's untouched. This proves he was framed." The judge's eyes shot to the prosecution table, furious. "Why was this not submitted?" HR said. The prosecutor sputtered. But no one heard him, because the judge had turned slowly, deliberately, toward HR Director Callahan. Callahan stood there stiffly, jaw clenched, eyes cold. But even he couldn't mask the flicker of panic. The judge slammed his gavel, not in verdict but in outrage. Mr. Callahan stepped forward. Callahan didn't move. The bailiffs did. 2 of them grabbed his arms. "What is this?" he barked. "Unhand me. I'm the whistleblower here." But no one listened. The investigators were already scrolling deeper into the drive, pulling up emails, approvals, shell company registrations, hidden communications. Every new document exposed another lie. Every lie led back to HR. And every accomplice listed was seated somewhere in that courtroom. The judge's face turned red with fury. "This is obstruction, fraud, evidence tampering. You framed this man." Callahan spat on the floor. He should have stayed quiet. The entire room recoiled. A reporter whispered, horrified, "Oh, he just admitted it." The judge pounded his gavel again. "Handcuff him." Click. The metallic snap echoed across the courtroom. Callahan's eyes darted around the room, and for the first time, he looked afraid. But that was just the beginning, because the pink flash drive kept revealing more. The payroll manager's involvement, the internal auditor who approved the sham reports, the financial team who funneled funds, the IT specialist who wiped logs, 2 senior executives who greenlit everything, 3 attorneys who buried whistleblower complaints, a former HR rep who disappeared last year. Their names flashed across the screen like a list of ghosts. Every accomplice in the room stiffened. The judge glared at the bailiffs. "Arrest them. All of them." "What? This is outrageous. You have no proof. Let go of me." One by one, they were pulled from their seats, dragged out, screaming, pleading, swearing. The courtroom echoed with chaos. Shouting, crying, footsteps scrambling, handcuffs locking. And amid all the noise, my daughter stood beside my holding cell. Small, brave, steady, her hand gripping mine through the bars. "Daddy," she whispered, "did I do good?" I couldn't speak. Emotion crushed my chest. Tears I'd held back for months finally fell. "You saved my life," I whispered. "You saved everything." She smiled, small, shy, proud. Investigators pushed more evidence to the screens. Documents HR never expected to resurface. Documents they thought were destroyed. Documents only my daughter had quietly saved in her tiny pink flash drive. The truth pure, unstoppable, undeniable, flooded the courtroom. And the walls HR once controlled now belonged to justice, to truth, to a 6-year-old girl who just wanted her dad to come home. As the last accomplice was dragged out, the judge turned to me, eyes softened, mouth tight with regret. "Mr. Turner," he said quietly, "you are no longer the accused." He lifted his gavel one final time. "You are now the victim." And he struck it down. Freedom tasted different now. It wasn't relief. It wasn't victory. It was a quiet, simmering storm, one that had been building in the darkest corner of his soul from the moment HR's men threatened his mother, from the moment iron bars separated him from his daughter's trembling fingers. He was declared innocent. But innocence didn't erase the nights he slept on concrete. It didn't erase the humiliation. It didn't erase the memory of HR's smile. So he built something else inside himself, resolve. A resolve colder than steel. Months later, Netcor's skyscraper cut into the sky like a blade, but inside the boardroom, tension sat louder than the AC vents. 11 executives gathered around the glass table, adjusting ties, rehearsing false smiles. They were ready to appoint a new head of HR, someone compliant, someone loyal, someone who wouldn't dig too deep. They didn't expect the doors to open with a heavy, echoing thud. He walked in, not in handcuffs, not escorted by guards, but flanked by federal agents, badges glinting under the cold fluorescent lights. Some board members stood immediately. Some froze. One whispered a prayer. He simply placed a folder on the table. "You were choosing a new head of HR today," he said quietly. "I thought I should bring you the truth before you appoint another monster." A projector flickered to life. Months of work, months of tracing offshore accounts, encrypted emails, silent partners, bribes disguised as scholarships, stolen pensions, coerced resignations, unraveled on the screen. He had spent every spare minute collaborating with federal investigators. Every whispered lead, every old memo, every transaction, every shadow. He wasn't saving himself anymore. He was ending them. Executives began to sweat. One tried to stand. A federal agent placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Please remain seated." The fall of Netcor. The raid hit the news before lunchtime. By evening, it became the most watched televised corporate takedown in the country's history. Netcor's logo, which once symbolized power and innovation, now glowed on news screens as a symbol of rot. Handcuffs, boxes of seized documents, hard drives carried out in plastic bags, executives crying, denying, collapsing. The board members who ignored him, arrested live. The managers who mocked his warnings, exposed. The silent partners dragged into daylight. Every investor pulled out within 48 hours. By the end of the week, Netcor, a company once called an empire, became nothing more than a haunted building with flickering lights and police tape dancing in the wind. He watched it all with a quiet, unshakable calm. Christmas morning, he sat on the porch of his mother's house, the harmattan breeze brushing his skin. Inside, his daughter giggled while helping her grandmother arrange breakfast. It was his mother's birthday, a morning of peace, a morning of new beginnings. His phone buzzed, a message from a blocked number. "You destroyed an empire." He stared at it for a moment. Then a slow smile curled across his lips, small, tired, but victorious. He typed back, "I didn't destroy it." A pause, a breath. "I just returned the favor." And for the first time in a long time, he felt free.